Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video.
Well, welcome to Giga Texas. It's Monday the 5th of December, and as you can see behind me, there's quite a bit of fog. So I'm going to have to wait around a little bit before I can get into the flight. Nevertheless, we're going to have a few topics that I want to discuss in the intro of the video today. And we're going to be giving a little bit more information, making some corrections of a few things that I've talked about, and just give you a little bit more context. We're going to start on the south end and talk a little bit about what the crews were installing over the water pipes, and then we'll also go up near the battery cathode plant and talk a little bit more about what the crews are doing on the foundation. So I hope you enjoyed this information, so let's get right into it.
So to start with, we'll talk about some information that I'd like to update from my 2 December video. And as I noted, these crews are rolling out this blue fabric or material that is over the blue water pipes that are being installed in this particular area. And I asked if anybody had an idea what they were, and I got some great information. I'd like to say thanks to my viewer Go Coyote and Patreon's Bob Callahan and Desi Doolin for this information. The blue colored material being placed in the trench is utility marking tape to warn anybody who may dig in the future that there's water pipes below this area. It's metallicized, so it can be located with a metal detector, or it could even have an RF signal generator sent through it to locate the underground utilities. They also mentioned that this type of tape is used and will be labeled and or colored for things like electrical, water, sewer, telephone, fiber optic, other types of pipes. Blue is generally used for water, and as you can see by the inset legend, it gives you a good idea of the various color codes that are used to help identify what is installed under the ground. Pretty cool. So now let's move up to Area 2 up near the battery cathode plant. And on my 2 December video, I incorrectly referred to this ongoing operation as soil testing, but that's not accurate. And again, I want to thank my outstanding viewers and Patreons that helped identify this error and also provide information and details to help make all of these corrections. It's really great to have, so let's get started. According to Go Coyote and also my Patreon, Bob Callahan, this is not test sampling. The soil test rigs look like regular truck-mounted well drilling rigs, although they may have track-mounted units. And there are even ones that mount on a skid loader. And we've seen actually some of this farther to the north in that open field that we discussed on previous videos. The crane-mounted drill is called a Continuous Flight Augering, or CFA rig, for installing concrete pilings. So to put into context, here's an image that I took in this area of the actual pile testing that was going on using this testing rig. And also, this was used on the south end of the factory where all the concrete is being removed, as you can see by this inset image that was taken a few weeks before the larger image. And as viewer Go Coyote mentions, these test rigs with the large red beams, what we saw earlier, is connected to installed pilings, and they measure the piling load capacity both at this location and also earlier as we saw at the south end. And this is used to help the engineers decide what kind of pilings are needed for this particular soil to make sure it was strengthened enough for construction. So now that we have this updated information about what is going on, let's talk a little bit more about continuous flight auger systems and how they work. The upper left-hand corner photo shows you various components that you would see on a construction site. Everything from the concrete hose connector and auger drive head to the auger itself, concrete pumps and concrete trucks, hydraulic power supplies, the actual crane, and the stabilized staging area. You can see some of the inset images of what some of the drills would look like, how they are assembled, and what they would look like as they are in operation. This information is provided by the source at the bottom of the screen and also in the video description if you want more information. So now we know that the Continuous Flight Auger, or CFA piles, are a type of bored cast-in-place replacement pile. They use a variety of equipment and instrumented rigs to drill and then concrete the inside of the bore in one continuous operation, enabling faster installation than other piles of this kind. And one thing I find kind of interesting is that they pour the wet concrete into the bore first, and then they put the reinforcement, in other words, a rebar cage, down into that using a press, and it enables the pile to resist the full range of various structural loading associated with the construction of the building. Using this illustration, we can get a good idea of how the equipment is used to construct the various piles. There's three main parts of the process: drilling, concreting, and then reinforcing, as you can see by the images. And it's also interesting that the piles can be installed to depths of in excess of 30 meters or more than 65 feet, which is amazing. To help bring everything that we discussed and the illustrations into context, I thought I would use this practical example of the construction work going on this foundation just to the west of the battery cathode plant. And what you can see here in the inset is the various components, and you can see the concrete hose connector, the AUG driver head that's installed on that black drilling piece, the auger itself, which is currently going into the ground, the crane, which is used to lift and install the rebar cages, the concrete trucks, and these happen to be from Martin Marietta from the on-site batch plant. Here is the concrete pump that is used to take the concrete and pump it up to the auger, and the hydraulic power supply. Also, you can see the overall building footprint identified. So hopefully this example and just showing you how it relates to what we're seeing on the site is very helpful for you. So there you go. As a quick recap, we talked a little bit about some of the information going on the south end with the blue lining that is used to identify location of underground pipes. We talked about the pile test rigs and how they were used. And we talked about the Continuous Flight Auger system and how it works with practical examples here at Giga Texas. I hope that you found this review, the information, and some of the corrections that I presented helpful and informative. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. As promised, you can see a lot of fog here at Giga Texas this morning. I ended up having to wait about 3 hours to be able to get the drone in the air. And as you can see, it was still foggy at the beginning of the video. It will clear gradually throughout the video. But right now we're on the north end of the main factory. And I will get the drone back closer to the building so we can see a little bit more detail. And I'll pick up the narration once we get near the casting machine structure. So we're approaching the east side of the casting machine structure. You can see quite a bit of the castings on the ground and also on those racks. The other thing I want to show you is you can see right at the middle of the screen there's these large kind of flat ingots. Those are scrap aluminum that comes from the casting process. It's melted back down and then it's used for recycling to make more castings. So we're going to pivot the drone back towards the west, and we'll take a look at the deliveries and the activity on the north end of the building today. You can also see that there is work going on with that median between the parking lot and the road, and they're still working on some of the curbs and the sidewalks. But here you can see there's quite a bit of materials. There's these 4 green kind of covered boxes on the left-hand side of the screen. Those are new. I'm not exactly sure what they are. All of the red components are plastic wrapped HVAC ducting of some kind. And then you can see quite a bit of other of these ducts, some of the red, some not in red, and other equipment being brought up to that platform. We can also see a very interesting delivery here to the 4th floor over the 4680 production facility. Not exactly sure what these boxes are. This floor is normally HVAC and other piping, sort of an industrial section of the factory. But with these crates going up to the 4th floor, it's a very interesting development. I wish I could have been able to read the labels on the crates, but I unfortunately was not able to. But there was about 4 or 5 of these large crates eventually lifted up to this platform. And you can see another one on the truck here waiting for pickup as well. I'll pivot the drone back just so you can see that median work that is ongoing. It looks like crews are doing a little bit of work next to that manhole cover. That's where that sidewalk will be extended, and most of the curbs have got the framing now, so that's coming along pretty quickly. You can see some other deliveries that have just been made here at the northwest corner of the battery, 4680 battery cell production. One of these trucks is being unloaded right now. I was not able to really see what was delivered. But we're going to continue to the south along the west side of the facility. You can see just some of this equipment. Looks like some motorcycles, some big blue containers have been delivered. And also, as we approach this ramp on the left, you'll see quite a few of these crates are lined up on that ramp for movement inside. And it looks like they were most likely just removed from that yard truck. As we continue further to the south, I'll pivot over to this section. I've been informed by one of my viewers that this is actually a water lift station for sewage, and it looks like they're doing some additional maintenance and some construction on this lift station right now. But we'll continue further to the south. I want to show you what the main entrance looks like with a lot of demo work today. You can see a lot of activity with removing more concrete on the stair section of the main entrance. You can also see more concrete sections have been removed. They were saw cut. And if you notice the left-hand side of the screen, that particular pattern, we can see that pattern emerging on the right-hand side of the screen. It looks like at first I thought that they were not making that cut to be a mirror, but they are. And you'll get a better chance to see that in just a second. But I wanted to bring a drone in a little bit closer so you can see the last bit of the demolishing of the stairs in front of the main glass doors. And it looks like the majority of the stairs are gone, with the exception of that landing where that black fence is located. So that'll be something that's removed next. But quite a bit of activity here to remove the last parts of the stairs. Now, as I pull away, you can see that right-hand edge with the cutouts of the concrete, and it's starting to mirror the left-hand side. So that does look like that's going to be part of the architectural feature of this new section. As we come up over the roof, you can see quite a bit of the fog. So I thought I would stop here briefly and show you the progress on this HVAC ducting and enclosure on the top of the body in white roof and how it looks today. It does not look like there's very much of the crews working on this section this morning, most likely because of all the heavy fog. We'll continue over to the east side. We'll go over the power lines, and then I'm going to turn back towards the building just so you can see a little bit of the work that's going on with these areas where the concrete's been removed in front of the receiving doors, and that work to reconfigure those apron areas continues. Now, despite the fog, you can get a really good view here of this smaller east parking lot that's being reconfigured for vehicle staging and also for vehicle testing. You can see that testing sort of the roadway on the south end of the parking lot. You can see some of the yellow markings as well. But I wanted to get in close to show you how the supercharger installation is coming along. You can see that the white boxes are the main electrical components necessary for the superchargers to work. I can't remember the actual name, but you can see how they're mounted onto these concrete bases. The crews are putting all the wiring in, and then up in the top right of the screen, as we get a little bit closer, you can see that each of these concrete sections will have 4 traditional superchargers, and you can see what they look like as they are installing them. So based on this, we're going to see probably a bank of about in the order of 30 to 40 superchargers installed on this west side of the parking lot that's being reconfigured as a vehicle staging yard. I'm going to fly up a little bit closer to the building. You can see that glass secondary entrance. some of the work on the ground that continues. And it looks like on the right-hand side they're expanding it by doing some more saw cutting of the concrete apron. We saw a little bit more of that on my previous video. It looks like some of it's been cleared off, but they will be removing more of that concrete in front of those receiving doors. As we continue to the north along the west side, I'll give you a different view of all of the castings that are being temporarily staged here on the ground level and also in these racks before they move to the body in white for assembly into new vehicles. So let's move the drone towards the north, and we'll head up to the electrical switch yard and see what progress is going on up there today. As we move up towards the electrical switch yard, I thought I'd stop here and just revisit this trench, and you can see the steel corrugated pipes next to it. This will be added in as part of the water management system, that all of these steel corrugated pipes and some of the concrete pipes will be a part of as they continue the construction up in this section. Now, the electrical switch yard is showing a lot of progress despite all the fog. I'll get a little bit closer to kind of talk your way through it so you can see. At the bottom of the screen, you can see those two transformer slabs. They look like they are now complete. Also, the two A-frames on the left-hand side of the screen have been completed, so there's a total of 6. But we'll see that the foundations and the footings for the 7th A-frame tower is being constructed right now. Next to this control room, we can see this trench is now being filled in with these metal beams and other treatment. This actually looks like it may be part of a sidewalk, and I'm not sure if any of you are experts on the electricity and electrical substations. Maybe this is built this way for grounding purposes, but let me know in the comments, because it's an interesting design that they are doing. As we continue to the north, I'll pan back towards the south. You can see the 6 A-frames currently installed. Also, you can see some of those V-topped circuit breakers are installed. Quite a bit of the steel has been assembled. The disconnects, the bus bars and insulators. And this is another good view of that sidewalk that they are building that's part of that control building. As we continue to come back towards the north, you can see the water detention pond on the left-hand side of the screen. It looks like there's some earthwork going on, possibly to repair the berms from some of the rain and erosion. And this is a good view of the switchyard today. And you can see how the steel is expanding a little bit towards the east, and that's where that next A-frame, the 7th of the A-frames, will be installed. So let's proceed over towards the battery cathode plant and see what activity is going on this side of the construction site today. So as on my way, I decided I would stop here and show you just how this portion of the construction site looks. You can see the warehouse on wheels, the parking lot. You can see a vehicle transporter kind of staged, waiting for its turn to go pick up Model Ys. And you can see this temporary pond with the liner, and it looks like the material that's going into that pond is coming from that Martin Marietta batch plant. So as we approach the west side of the battery cathode plant, a lot to see today, and if you watch my intro, the intro will be very helpful for what you see here, and you can identify all of the components that are going on. At the bottom of the screen is GeoPier, preparing more of the GeoPiers. You can see some of the concrete trucks and the pump for the concrete that will go up to the auger, and the auger is on that yellow crane with that tall black scaffolding. You can also see the crews are preparing more rebar. Some of that's for, it looks like the foundation, but there's also some rebar cages that go into the auger drill bores, where, as we talked in the intro, the concrete has been poured and then they will install these rebar reinforcement cages. And you can see the white crane is picking up one right now, bringing it over to the workers, and then they'll be inserting it down into the bore, and then it'll be pressed into there. again, take a look at the intro for more details. As I pan back towards the building, you can see the trenches on the north and the east side. The north one is doubled inside, a lot of the white piping being installed. You can also see crews working on more of the footings for the new building. As we move this direction, I wanted to give you a good view of some of the activity that's going on here. Some of the things that I see is they're installing the concrete wall panels now between the steel structure and the building. You can see those panels that have the openings. That's for the pipes that you see on the ground that the crews are installing to exit the building and then be suspended on that steel structure. You can see some more wall panels being delivered as well. And that new yellow crane, you can see its purpose is to reach over that steel structure to put the concrete in. This is a good view of the footings on the left-hand side of the screen for the construction site. And it's interesting that they're using wood frames around these particular footings. As one of my Patreons mentioned, this suggests that they need them to be pretty clean as far as the edges because they may be doing some trenching around them at a later date. So something for us to watch. As we move over to the east side of the battery cathode plant, this is a good view of the activity over here and how the building appears with more of the wall panels installed. On the bottom of the screen, you can see more of that blue water pipe being installed, and this mimics what we see on the north end as well. Both of them are heading from the east to the west. You can see the two temporary platforms, also some plastic and some doors on the top of those platforms to keep the weather out. This is a very interesting series of deliveries. It's all these white painted, I don't know if these are platform scaffolding or if it's to support the equipment that the crane that you see picking it up off of the truck is to install. So I'm not sure exactly what all that is. If you happen to know, let me know in the comments, but it's an interesting development. Another thing that's very interesting is the progress on this steel control room. As you can see, some of the wall panels on both the east and west sides have gone up, framing for what looks like a window, and we'll get in a little bit closer in a second. You can also see some earthwork just to the east of this structure. But as we get a little bit closer, we can look down inside. That temporary room that had the plastic has been removed, but it looks like there's some sort of equipment being installed in that general section as well. Looks like the roof is also just about ready for the roof decking to be installed, so very soon this building will be fully enclosed. You can see some more deliveries on the left-hand side of the screen in these dark blue wrapped boxes. Also, the water pipe installation in this trench, like I said, mimicking what we see on the south end. And as I pull back, we'll get a look at the material staging, some of the workshops, and some of the other materials and equipment that are stored up in this particular area. And we'll proceed back towards the building again. And you can see that berm on the right-hand side that has been recently excavated. Suggests that we'll see more excavation to widen this section out and remove the berm at some point in the future. Here you can see that temporary structure with all of the wrapped equipment underneath. And this is a good view of the entire west side of the construction of the plant and also the new building. I'm going to bring us a little bit closer in so you can get another vantage point on the steel structure and the work with the concrete wall panels, all of the plumbing and the large steel or iron pipe that they're constructing and putting together for that steel structure. And then here, as I mentioned earlier, you can see the trench on the north end has gotten a lot wider, and they've also been installing some of this white piping. And also going back to the intro, this is the auger, and it looks like the crews are making these piles right now. You can see them in action there. In fact, they've just installed the rebar cage that we talked about that the white crane had, and then they're drilling more of those piles as we speak. So anyway, a lot of activity here, and hopefully the discussion we had at the intro was very helpful to understand what all we were seeing in that brief visit. I'm going to fly over the warehouse on wheels briefly. You can see more of the trailers have been reorganized here where the parking lot is. It continues to expand a little bit to the north as production demands more and more of the trailers. That's why I think on the west side, which we'll see a little bit later, they are expanding to allow for more trailer storage. This is an extremely busy day here at the vehicle transport location. There's at least 7, maybe 8 trucks picking up Model Ys at that moment in time. There were many more trucks arriving on site to pick up more of the Model Ys, so there was quite a bit of activity with Model Ys moving off site. So as we move our way back to the south of the building, I wanted to show you here some more dirt being stockpiled in this clearing. Again, this tends to be a place where they stockpile dirt and then it's later used in other construction sites. So still not sure what the ultimate purpose is of that clearing section. As we get towards the southeast corner of the building, we can see more of the blue-topped crates and the green, white, and blue components next to the wall. This is all part of the AIDA stamping press that's being installed in the stamping 2 on the south end of the building. You can see quite a bit of materials being stockpiled on this east staging. And also we can see the electrical conduit and the concrete vaults underneath the power lines and near the that power pole are starting to be covered over, so it looks like the underground conduit work is nearly completed, which is very interesting to see. As we continue more towards the west, you can get a good idea of how the material staging looks on the south side of the pond. Also some more of the solar panels waiting for eventual movement up onto the roof. And then I'll pivot the drone around just so you can see how this staging area looks like. The pond appears. And then a lot of activity here on the west side of this entire lot where they've removed all of the concrete. And that sort of pan from the west to the east gives you a really good idea how this section looks today. You can also see that there are a lot of these steel corrugated pipes. Very large pipes have been delivered, continuing to be delivered even this morning. And some more of the concrete pipe segments on the left-hand side as well. Quite a bit of work on some trenching, and we'll come back for a closer look in just a second, but I wanted to show you the movement of these steel corrugated pipes off of this truck, and with that truck it gives you a good idea of scale. You can also see some more concrete being removed here on the remaining portions of the concrete lot. And as I pan the drone around, you can see some of the activity in more detail here in this trench. The trench box is helping to prevent the trench from collapsing in on the workers. You can actually see a crack in the ground on the north side, and that's one of the reasons why they do that. But you can also see that they've been installing the concrete segments in that particular trench. As we move over to this section next to the Capital truck, it looks like they are preparing this section of ground possibly for more construction, but it's really hard to tell at this point in time. Something more to monitor. As we talked in the intro, this is that area that they were installing that blue tape that's used to mark the underground water pipes and to ensure that they don't have any damage on future excavation work. So again, take a look at the intro for more information. I'm going to go across the highway. I want to show you a lot of activity that is going on over in this section now. As mentioned in my previous video, the work has resumed in earnest now. And you can see that the crews are very busy removing more of the hills and flattening out this ponded section. This is the remnants of the old sand and gravel mine. It was partially cleared and partially had the hills removed about 12 months to 18 months ago, but then work stopped, but now it is resuming. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of activity here. In some cases, they're excavating the dirt on the upper left-hand side of the screen, and then the center dump trucks are bringing it over here to fill in and level out the grade. So we'll go over and take a look at the excavation work. You can see all the trucks lined up more trucks on their way. You can see the excavator digging up these hills and this area that has a little bit of raised grade, and they're using all this dirt to flatten out that other grade that we saw just earlier in the video. One other thing I want to show here before we get to the end of the video is you can see the staging yard. On the left hand side you can see where they've added up more of the grade to get it level and more aggregates being added here. It's overall doubling the size of this staging area. So something else I'll be looking at and we'll cover more in depth in the next video. So there you have it, a very foggy day. It took me several hours to get the video done, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.